The second coming of Christ. The resurrection of the Christ within you. A revelatory commentary on the original teachings of Jesus. Volume 1. There's 2 volumes of this one. They are 800 pages long, and they take us through the whole of the first 4 books of the New Testament: Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. And the author is an Indian guru, Paramahansa Yogananda, and his interpretation is Eastern philosophy interpretation, which is very refreshing because it looks at Christianity from another perspective, outside of the dogma of the Western inculcation and confinement. It's much broader and much more philosophical, and so it's a beautiful read. And I've read a couple of other of his books before, and what it means is, by the title, the second coming of Christ, is that when Christ comes again, he doesn't make manifest in the physical form. He comes as the light into our very essences. Maybe he comes via cosmic God consciousness or spirit, but something gets turned on, and that something has been turned on within me. And it doesn't mean that I am a great advocate of the Christian faith. It doesn't mean that I have any adherence to any of the dogma. What it means is that I embrace the Christian philosophy and the philosophy of Christ consciousness, which is the essence of God potentially in us all. And so what he's speaking about in this few paragraphs I've just read now is that man is blinded by the relativities of life. Without the aid of physical light, he sees darkness. But beyond that darkness is another light that pervades the world. Hidden behind the ether of space is the tremendous light of the astral world, providing the light and energy that sustains the whole universe. The auroral rays of astral lifetrons are a spiritual ectoplasm around the entire cosmos. Out of the astral light, God is creating planets and universes. I am in that light all the time. I see everything aglow with that heavenly essence. All physical manifestations emanates from that astral light, and that light emanates from the creative manifestation of God as light. If you saw God right now, you would see him as one mass of light scintillating over the whole universe. As I close my eyes in ecstasy, everything melts into that great light. It is not imagination, rather the perception of the sole reality of being. Whatever is seen in that state will happen. That is the proof of the reality of that omnipresent light of all becomings. Man is so drunk with delusion, it obliterates his true perception, so that the darkness of his ignorance cannot apprehend the light of God vibrating everywhere. Both cosmic delusion, Maya, and individual illusion of ignorance, avidya, work together to thus obscure and confound the soul's inherent intuitive sense of God's omnipresence. In meditation, this darkness of sensory dependence goes away and intuition prevails, revealing oneself as light in the magnitude of a whole universe of light. So you can see that it's philosophical. And so the whole thing about our perception and our state of being, we have to maintain an open mind and an open heart. Because if our minds and hearts are closed to certain concepts, we would never have the time of day for reading very profound and beautiful literature like this. And so what it's saying to me, that is my experience. I'm in absolute agreement with it. The delusion which our everyday senses bring about when they are devoid of the intuition of the universe. As soon as we close our eyes and we become still in meditation, we enter into the intuitive facet of our minds, which is the kingdom of God. And when we are in that realm, then we speak with our unconscious. We speak with the Creator. We can pave the way of our lives via our deep and rich understanding of that which we are. And so we dismiss all of the everyday nonsensical distractions which keep our consciousness so narrow and confined, and we open up to God consciousness, which is the consciousness of the universe. And so I think it would be fair to say that that's the premise where I'm speaking from with all of my videos in recent times. Now, I've been speaking about this phenomena for many years, only I've been speaking about many other subjects at the same time, which has probably watered down my message. Now I don't engage in the so-called conspiratorial facets of this world. I don't engage in the egoic facets. I don't project my ego or temporary destabilization because I've been influenced externally by something else. No, I retain my composure and I retain a consistent message, and that message is that the light is within us all. There is such a thing as the light of God. It is what the whole universe makes manifest out of. The whole of the so-called physical world pertains to photons, which is just light, which in turn is just vibration. And when it says in the Bible, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God, well, it's saying here in this interpretation what I've believed to be the interpretation for a long time. And it's that the words that were uttered were vibratory. And this whole universe is created from vibration. Without vibration, there is nothing, because everything is dead and inanimate, and if things are dead and inanimate, then there's no spirit pertaining to them. So this is why every single atom in the cosmos is busybodying animated. And so then we see that that's the direct replication of life itself. Life is an animation. Wow, and when we become still within our animation, we see the animation and the effects of the animation so exceedingly profoundly. And we can see all of the Kantian cause and effect which is going on, and how we are being manipulated via a whole myriad of external forces around us. And I was just having a conversation about an hour ago with Mr. Nobody, and we're speaking about this and the recent video that I made where I'm asking, who are you? Who are we? If not just for a Kantian cause and effect. in the universe, in the cosmos. And so this last chapter, chapter number 7, guys and girls, now I'll put in the description, and the other chapters you'll find in the description of the video, which has got the title Closer to God within it. And this last chapter has been about how I have been unconsciously and consciously pulled towards the purity of God. Now, in the unconscious part, I'm speaking about how in the past, from the very, very beginning, it was an unconscious form of magnetism which was drawing me in closer to the Spirit of God when I wasn't aware of what actually was going on or for why it was happening. But now I've become awoken and I am extremely conscious of what's going on. I can see that as clear as day, how the universe, it has a propensity and a desire to draw in awakened souls. There is something about the universe which enjoys, likes to partake with awakened beings, because the universe has no joy in the automaton, the automaton. The universe has no joy with automaton. The human being, which is just doing what the animal instincts and its Kantian cause and effect is governing them to do. You see, the philosopher Immanuel Kant, he stated that everything in the universe has a cause and effect, and so basically we're all automated from that perspective. But he never took into consideration the spiritual context, because when you take into account this spiritual context, then that throws a spanner in the works, because all of a sudden then we think about what we are doing, we step outside of our automaton, and we then manipulate and mold the universe to our own desire. And so what happens now is, since my awakening, my consciousness has been opened, and I look at all these variables and I see how the cause and effects can manipulate me and govern me and direct me into certain actions. But I then apply my freedom of free will, and I decide whether I want to be lured in or manipulated or pulled or shunned via these energies. And so I become a master then of my own destiny. And this is the whole thing in relation to free will. Most people, they have very little free will because they have very little awareness. But when we have awareness of our existence, then of course, as a byproduct of that comes a certain facet of free will. And so now my free will has got me sitting here, reading these scriptures and hypothesizing, pontificating, basking in the beauty of this written word. And I then convert that written word into a spoken word, into a creative vibration. And I am now speaking those creative vibratory words to you, and you hopefully will make something of them. You will transmute them into positive action. You will transmute them into having more of a say as to how you live your lives, because you will be thinking about the things I've said and you will be applying it. And so when I'm reading about the light of God and how that makes me feel. Well, I've been speaking in the first 7 chapters about this, and I would, I would encourage you again, for those of you that haven't read all of the chapters, to stay with it, because I will be taking you on the journey of the supernatural, and I will be introducing you to many facets of the supernatural isness of our existence. Some of you may have had a few of the experiences that I've had, similar sort of things, and so you will have more of a kinship with what I'm conveying. Some of you won't have had any of the experiences, but you will have a level of intrigue which has drawn you to these discourses, and I can't help thinking that you will have to derive something of a positive nature from what has been said, what you're reading. Now, speaking to a friend of mine only a couple of days ago who had read the first 4.5 chapters, stated that it's a very intriguing, alluring journey, and there's lots of subject matter from many varying facets which give rise to an opening up of the mind and the heart if people want to engage in that sort of thing. If, however, people are still captivated by their own automated condition, then this stuff isn't going to mean anything, and they will read it, it will just pass through their consciousness, and they will continue on their journey of cause and effect. But for those of you that stay with it, that feel it, that intuit it, you will continue on another journey, on your own journey of the supernatural. And in that realm, you're in the realm of the cosmic intelligence, which could be called spirit or God, or simply consciousness. And so, to read these things, it's kind of like, well, look, if you pick up a book like this, which is 800 pages, and then you put it next to the other one, which is another 800 pages, it's a book this thick. And I realise for many of you it's a very daunting proposition, because it's going to take many hours. Now, 1,600 pages is identical to the length of the Old and New Testament combined. That's what the Bible consists of, 1,600 and something pages, and about 2 million words. How do I know? Well, because I've looked at the pages and, flicked through them, and I think so it's like 1,500 and something from what I remember. But yeah, I mean, it's a daunting task, but I've read that book in its entirety on 2 separate occasions, because it was very powerful and important to me to do so. As to why, I couldn't really say. Good morning, sir. There's something that's moving me to do it, because of my own volition. What would really draw me towards spending this amount of time of my life, which I could be deploying with other things? Why is it such? Why is it so? Because ultimately, like I say, there's a guiding force which is drawing me in closer to God. And so I'm going with it in the early stages. For those of you that have read my early chapters, you will read how I first went or found myself within this spiritual awakening process, the dark night of the soul. And for the first 7 years, I was absolutely just reading 12 hours a day, and that hasn't abated too much. I'm still given to spending a lot of my time in reading, because there is something that wants me to know. Why does something want me to know it? Because something wants me then to convey it. And it's the whole passing of the baton thing. You see, we have to look closely at what's going on in this universe and in our own lives and in other people's lives, and we look for the motivation, the drive, the agency behind the actions that we and other people do. And so I'm analysing the actions, what this automated creature is doing, and I'm hypothesising as to what the end game is. And I was speaking to Mr. Nobody this morning, and I'm saying, I don't know what the end game is. I don't even know what the end of my book is going to be. I haven't concluded that yet. I haven't arrived. I don't even know whether there is going to be an end, or whether there's just going to be one final word which is going to say to be continued, and it's going to leave all of you eagerly anticipating the answers in the sequel. But all I'm doing is I'm just being a messenger. And this is what consciousness does. Consciousness, as I said in, I think it's the last chapter, it doesn't have any real vested interest in the individuals per se. It has a vested interest in life en masse, in consciousness en masse, because what spirit does, it uses consciousness with all of its living creatures, so they have an experience, and then they pass that experience on. And so even when we look at like most what we consider to be rudimentary animals and plants and things like that, we think that there isn't too much going on, but there's a whole lot of stuff which is going on, even in the most simplest organism of like blades of grass. They are paying something forward on an ongoing basis. They are uploading, they're passing the baton of what they have gained as far as their existence goes. And this is why over millions of years life forms continue to exist, because they make certain modifications premised on experience that they've had. You see, they have to do this because it's like when you look at the world about you, the natural world, you will see that some years all of a sudden the trees will start to bud a month or two earlier than they do on other years. And you ask yourself, why are they budding at the end of February, when usually we still have frosts up until the end of March or April? Simply because those organisms' intelligence expands to such a vastness that it has made a conscious decision that it is going to risk coming out at that particular time, because the probability of a frost seems to be very minimal. And so the way it feels and intuits the vibration of the cosmos and the world, it's saying to itself, okay, I feel that I can start to put forward my life. And sometimes then we have a freak frost, and it kills lots of the most delicate of life forms, and it's kind of like, they've got it wrong that year. But then that information will be stored in their collective memory and consciousness, and they will make use of it on subsequent occasions. So when we see trees that are budding in February, we then have to take on board the genius of nature, and we can readily assume that spring is coming early this year. We're going to have a mild winter, and that is invariably how it happens. And so what I've seen the buds on trees in February, I'm like, great, because spring is just around the corner. And that's what's happened. And so when we open our minds and our hearts to the intelligence of the cosmos, which is spirit, there's spirit in absolutely everything. We are in spirit. It is spirit. When we get connected with spirit, then we also will thrive. Because just like the buds, when they know that it's going to be a mild winter and spring's coming early, well, we can make modifications as to what we're going to do in our lives, and we will have a better judgment as to whether we want to deploy this now or whether we want to do that now. And so for me, this book, I've had the seed, the kernel of this book for many years, and even, you know, in recent times, I've felt the power and the energy. It's just under the surface. And I'm like, well, is it going to come then? When's it going to come? I mean, I don't know what to do. I don't know about writing books. I've never done one. I don't know about that. But then you see, I just put myself in similar sort of shoes, loosely speaking, of, you know, people like Moses. Moses was spoken to by God. And he was told that he is going to be this articulator, which is going to guide the people. And he said, Lord, I'm just a humble shepherd. I know nothing of public speaking and leadership and all these things. I have no experience in that. Surely there's a better man for the job. But the Lord said, no, I know that you are the man to do that, because I am going to give you the facility. And so God then gave Moses the facility of articulation. And Aaron, Moses' brother, he gave jurisdiction over the tabernacles and all of the runnings of whatever went on in the tabernacles, which of course was the burning of certain plants. That's why smoke was always coming out of them, you know. They were burning marijuana or, you know, something like this, and they were getting in touch with God via these entheogens. That's what was going on in these tabernacles, ladies and gentlemen. And that's why they were very top secret, and only very few initiated people could enter. The priests, and that one then was continued in Egypt, and it's continued all over the world within secret societies, and it's no different today. And so I was thinking the other day that when we look at Tutankhamun lying in his sarcophagus, he is portrayed in the imagery of him with his arms crossed, which is of course symbolism, and in one hand he has a crook, and in the other hand he has a flail. And so the crook is to guide the masses like a shepherd's crook, and the flail is to issue some sort of level of guidance or constraint for wayward sheep. So we look at the symbolism of ancient Egypt, and we see that the Queen of England also is pictured holding a flail and a crook in exactly the same hand and manner as Tutankhamun. And so we can see that leadership, that knowledge, that secrecy has been passed down, and the leaders now all over the world are in actual fact descendants of the divine, because originally these people like Moses and Aaron, they were given these positions to lead the people via God, if we want to, you know, have an adherence to that. But for me, something's going on with me whereby I never have had something that's recognized to me of like a leadership that I want to lead and guide people. But I found myself in this position doing it for these past 12 years. And I've often been in a tizzy with myself, haven't I? Whereby I've been like, I don't know why I'm doing this. This is bullshit. I don't know who you are, I don't want to know who you are, you're this, you're that, and all this stuff. I was confused with all of this stuff. And then I would make all different sorts of videos trying to get a response out of you so that I could psychoanalyze who it was that I'm dealing with. But now I've reached a position whereby I'm obviously noticeably much more refined and still. And all those things, they're of no consequence. I have resigned myself, the ego has resigned itself, that what's going on here is the will of God. I'm being guided by the will of God, ladies and gentlemen, to pass the baton. And so I'm reading things like Paramahansa Yogananda, who says that he had the Spirit of God enter into him, and he actually tells stories about having visions, physical visions of Christ, and speaking with Christ through varying times in Christ's life. Sometimes Christ makes manifest as a child, sometimes as an adult, and sometimes are of a light and of an essence. And so I've had things like this. If we believe in the Holy Trinity, then we believe in the Father, Son and the Holy Ghost, don't we? So I've had a talking to from God, from Jesus. I have visited hell, and I've had the pleasure of being introduced to heaven. And so something has been going on with me. And so I'm like, okay, whatever. Who am I? Who am I? Who? I don't know. I've given up on that a long time ago now. It's no longer something that is relevant. All I need to know is that whatever I'm doing has positive energy pertaining to it. It is being driven by something which I have a kinship to. I can't put my finger on it, but it's there, it's powerful, it's all around, it's everything, and it also is me. And so I go, okay. So I realise that I am a manifestation of consciousness, just like a blade of grass, just like a fly or a beetle or anything like this. We have a purpose. There is a purpose to our existence, and it is so that the whole can make manifest. Just like the butterfly effect, everything has a cause and effect, just like Kant says. But over the cause and effect, there's a spirit which is guiding and overseeing. And so again, I was speaking along these lines to Mr. Nobody a while ago. And I'm saying that, well, when we look at what's going on in the world and who's behind it, that then gives rise to the conspiratorial facets of the human being. But I've gone over and above the conspiratorial facets, because what I believe is that nobody per se has any particular design. Just like no fish in a school of fish has any particular design to lead the school. No ant in any ant colony has any particular hierarchy or design over the rest. There is an energy which is pervasive, that is working, manipulating the actual creatures. The creatures themselves, for instance, a queen is born from queen DNA. A worker is born from worker DNA. a fighter, a protector, a guard, a centurion is born from a certain DNA. If they have any sentience at all, then that's just sentience of self, but they don't know what the rhyme and reason is behind why they have been in this position. And so I look at myself as no more than an ant or a fish or a bee or a politician, you see, because it's all the same energy. The energy of the state is no different to the energy of an ant colony or a school of fish. It's a manifestation which is invisible, which draws in life forms to act in a certain way. And this energy, it has worked out over forever how it is best for these creatures to live. And so because ants are tiny and very defenseless individually, then this energy brings them all together in a hierarchical system like an army. Can you imagine? Like soldier ants, that they are an army, and some colonies of ants, some certain breeds, they send out scouts to look for other colonies of the same variety of ant, and when they find them, they come back, they tell the colony, and then the colony sends their soldiers, the ones with the big pincers, and then they attack the other ones with the pincers. So you see, look, what has to happen is the scouts that go to look for these other colonies, they have to go back and they have to relay a certain level of information. And that level of information has to know that that colony is smaller than ours. And they only have like 150 centuries guarding the fortification. So we will send 500 soldiers to ensure our success and our victory over the colonization of that little colony. So it would never do if the scouts came back and then said, oh, there's a colony over there, and then the leader said, well, how many centuries do they have guarding the palace? And they go, I don't really know. Well, go back. We need to know this information. So they have to have this information. Can you imagine, people, the intelligence behind this? Think about it. Get into this world. There's something massive going on over and above what we think is going on. And I personally haven't heard anybody speaking about schools of fish and beehives and ant colonies like I am now. So what is it that's working through me? What is it that's enabled me to look at that and draw similes to how human beings work? So when we look at Parliament, we see there's a hierarchical system within that Parliament, but nobody has any real level of importance. Prime ministers and leaders and presidents, they come and they go. They enter into the field of energy and they are a spokesperson, apparently, and they say what all the others want to be said, because if all the others wanted to say it, then there'd just be a cacophony of hundreds or thousands of voices. Well, we need one voice to be our spokesperson. So this energy pushes forward to the top of the pinnacle of the hierarchical system to be the spokesperson. Just like a colony of ants will have the queen, or bees, they will have the same. They have a job to produce their bloodline. The queens have to keep being produced from queen larvae, and all the workers protect the queen larvae and bow down to them. And it's just like with monarchies or parliaments, it's the exact same energy, people. The exact same thing is going on, only with different life forms. And so if we look at the energy of, say, like monarchy or governments, what actually is that energy? It's indecipherable. It's just an energy which is created via the universe through gazillions of years, through God's genius, that enables certain living organisms to have a better probability and chance of survival. And now we may think that, what sort of God is it that then sends one of our countries to invade another country, to kill their pincer people and to take over and to hijack their queens and this, that and the other? Well, look at what the Nazis did in the Second World War. When America decided that they'd had enough of this new ideology which was becoming ever pervasive, then they sent over their pincer men, and what they did was, well, they killed the rogue leaders, and they hijacked, they carried back all of the Queen's larvae, which was all of the scientists. Project Paperclip brought into America over 2,000 Nazi scientists. Eric von, the creator of the atom bomb, along with Oppenheimer, these sorts of people. So what we do as human organisms, we do the same as other, animal colonies and insect colonies do. And even dolphins. I've seen documentaries whereby dolphins, they accost other smaller groups of dolphin and they kidnap the young females, and then they collectively, effectively rape them. They inseminate them, and then they prevent them from leaving their brood. And then the young are born into that brood, and they then become a part of it. Whereas up until the birth of these offspring, the dolphin, which used to belong to another school or unit, could still run back to them. So they have protectors all around them to prevent them from doing that until they've given birth. And then once they've given birth, maybe they on some occasion let them go. If they're getting old, they no longer have a use for them, you see. So when we ask ourselves, what intelligence is it that lies behind all of this stuff? It's cosmic God consciousness, people. And so nobody will ever tell me that there isn't God, something that's genius, that's created everything, and we're all a part of it. And anybody that just don't believe in God, anybody like Richard Dawkins, are absolutely ridiculous. How can, like I am now, I'm gazing at the clouds. The clouds are phenomenal. And every time I do, it's just a constant reminder. I may as well be seeing God sitting on the clouds, like I did on DMT and when I was doing this Wim Hof breathing. That's what I'm actually seeing every single time I'm looking up at the sky. And a couple of days ago, I just was coming back from the shop, and there's a couple of the old sticks from, my building, standing outside talking to each other. And I said, guys, they're both like 75, 85. And I said, doesn't it make you glad to be alive when you gaze upon the clouds? And they went, oh, I can't look at the clouds. If I look up, I'll fall over. I'll lose my balance, I do. I'm like, really? And then the other one's like, yeah, I mean, I can't look up, because if I look up, I need to lean back on a wall. And I'm like, what? Because your neck is too stiff. Okay, that's feasible. But you say you get dizzy and you'll fall over. Really? I asked the question, when was the last time you don't even have to move your head. Look. I can look up, I can change the direction of my eyes from this to that, which is, I don't know, 120, 130 degrees. I don't need to use my neck. So what was going on with these people that they never looked up at the sky? And I wonder if they ever had in their lives. It was kind of like, oh, if I look up at the sky, I'll fall over. Did that happen on one occasion? When they was 2 years old? Did they look up at the sky and fell over and decided that they would never ever do that again? I also said to one of these elderly gentlemen, there's a promontory nearby, about a couple of miles away, and it is the site of an old quarry. And when you stand on top of this promontory, you can look down into the myriad tiers of this granite quarry, and it really is a sight to behold. And I go up there all the time, and I say to him, "Oh, I've just been up the quarry. Oh, I can't go up there, I can't." And I'm, "Why?" "I get fripped." I do. "What do you mean you get fripped?" He gets frightened. "Of what?" "The height, when I'm looking down." I'm like, well, it's not like you're standing on the precipice and you're looking down, 1,000 feet. You're looking down at a long vantage. You're standing on just a bevel, just on a hill. Why would you get fripped about that? Why would you never visit that place? Why has he never visited it? Maybe he did one occasion, and again he's decided that he'll never do that again. What's going on? Why has the universe created creatures like that? For what purpose? Then I ask myself, well, I look at their lives, they're very sedentary, they've never done anything, they've never produced anything other than other offspring. And it's kind of like, well, that's all they've done. They have brought other creatures into this world, so they have served life just like a virus in a petri dish, just reproducing the virus. The virus serves something somewhere, and so that's been their bag. Whereas other people, like me, I've mentioned in the video prior that I've never, created anything which saved lives or, has helped people to live their lives more conveniently or anything like this. But then, I have to be careful what I'm dismissing, because I've been an orator for, many years in my life, but most profoundly these last 12 years whilst I've been making videos. And I've been imparting information, and there's been myriad of people which have said that, wow, the things that I have said has been really beneficial to them. So I am, in actual fact, a benefit to the world, to the species, to the cosmos. And that's why I'm writing this book, doubtless, because if I write a book, then the universe knows that I have a proclivity. The ego has a proclivity, and the ego in this one was pretty awesome. It's kind of formidable, and what it was doing for many years was destroying the good work that the universe wanted me to do. And I would be taking down all of my videos and destroying them and all this sort of thing. But now it's kind of like, well, the spirit has taken over, and that level of destruction has been abated because the ego has matured. The ego now has the greatest of respect for its master. See, there was this book that I spoke about some time ago, The Master and His Emissary, written by Gilchrist. And this guy called Gilchrist, forget his first name at the moment in time, he wrote, I think it's about 700 pages, about the struggle of the ego with the higher self. The ego is just the emissary, it's just a messenger that engages with the world. The spirit is the master. And so I've realised now that the ego is just a worker, just being employed by spirit. And so when we have this spiritual awakening, we go, oh my God, all these years I was thinking that, you know, the ego is a master in its own house. But like Freud said, shockingly, as it turned out to be in humanity, when we realise that we are not in actual fact masters in our own house, per se, from the ego's perspective, we realise that there's something vastly over and above, which is guiding, manipulating, encouraging, whatever. But there's something vastly over and above our tiny egos. And so when we look at bees or ants or dolphins or fish or whales, we know that what's going on there is nothing more than what's going on with the human being. We're more sophisticated, but the energy and the hierarchical thing that's going on and the design is the same. And the design is to continue with life, paying no attention to any individual. No individual is important in this thing. Einstein and Newton and Hitler and Stalin, none of them are important. It was the energy which was using them. It was the creative and destructive wheel of Shiva that was doing all of this and using certain people and putting them forward to do things. Like Gandhi and Martin Luther and anybody else that, you know, kind of like is responsible for the sway and the maneuverability of any organism. When we watch a school of fish, we can see that they, you know, without a predator being nearby, there's an energy which is moving them. What is this energy? Like I say, it's cosmic. There is no one fish that is guiding the whole school. When we watch birds in the sky, there's no one bird, because they all move in unison, don't they? It's not like, oh, they go over and then, oh, they'll follow. It's just kind of, they all kind of like, they recognize very, very subtle movements, and they fall into flow with those movements, and they become one. So a flock of birds is a flock. It's an energy form unto itself. And then when all of the birds disappear, there is no longer a flock. Well, what happened? Where's the flock gone? Well, I mean, the flock was just an energy. The energy is still there. It's in the ether. And you will see other birds join that energy at different times. And so nothing's changed. All these energies are around us. And when we look at the world with what's going on, with the certain manipulations, like what's going on in Hawaii, and then what went on in California, you know, these very curious fires, and then all of a sudden, you know, all different sorts of things that's going on, wars and, you know, political coups and everything. We go, oh, conspiracy, conspiracy, conspiracy. Who's behind the conspiracy? Or the you-know-whos is behind it. Follow the money. No, people. It's vastly more complex and intelligent than that. You've got to follow the cosmic isness if you're going to find who's behind all this. And you'll realise then that it isn't in actual fact any life form as we know it that's behind it. It's cosmic life. It's cosmic genius. It's God consciousness that is the energy which it's like being caught in the vortex of a sink. Like you drop a fly into a sink when you pull the plug out. Well, there's one thing that's going to happen, and it's going to get sucked down into that energy field. There's no escape for that fly once its wings have become wet. It's like when we go over the event horizon in a black hole. There's only one thing that's going to happen. You're going to go somewhere we know not where. And so when we look around, what I've come to glean now, and what I am exceedingly intuitive about, is that it's God consciousness through and through. And we can't blame anybody per se. And, you know, some of you had a bit of an issue when I says that we can't blame the politicians per se, because from birth they were guided and moulded and manipulated and indoctrinated into being what they are and doing what they do. As individuals, they've got no more jurisdiction over whatever they do than, say, like Mother Teresa had jurisdiction over what she did. It was a compulsion, it was a drive, it was an energy. And so that's what's going on here, people. Energy fields. And when we get close to energy, we become intuitive. in relation to energies, and we become empathic. We feel different energies, and I've spoken on lots of occasions about feeling negative energies. When you get one in the vicinity, it feels evil. It feels very, very negative. And so you have to get away from that energy, because you're never going to transform them. You're never going to be changing that energy. You're not going to be absorbing it, or you're not going to be infiltrating it. It's a powerful energy force onto itself, and it's just going to be going around like a Tasmanian devil everywhere it goes. It's one of those negative energy fields. They exist, just like, you know, things like Satan and black holes exist and all this sort of thing. All these things exist in the cosmos, people. But then we can feel people's beauty and their positive energy, and we love to be around them. And if we're positive, then like you know, two galaxies, you know, getting drawn in via gravity, ultimately they'll end up as one, because the spirit is the same, you see. So hopefully, you know, the positive spirit is more pervasive than the negative spirit. And so when we look at the powers that be, we think they're doing this and they're doing that, and it's negative and it's evil and it's manipulative and all that sort of thing. I go, just chill out, because these random Tasmanian devils who appear to be powerful and have a lot of influence, they can't influence that mass of positive energy around them anything like what they think they can, or what you may be confused into believing that they can. When you have a negative energy field in your vicinity, you may consider that they are pretty powerful. But when you know that you are God consciousness, when you know that the universe en masse is positive and it's loving and all this sort of thing, you know that these little free radicals, like the free radicals in our bodies, they don't stand a chance. So just chill out, just relax, don't allow them to upset you, don't allow them to steal your energy, and don't take on board any of their negative energy. Stay still, stay protected, and in time they will burn out, and then they will disappear. Just like Hitler burnt out, just like Stalin burnt out, just like Mao Zedong burnt out, just like Pol Pot burnt out. They all burn out. Just like every individual star, they ultimately burn out. Just like you and I, we're ultimately going to burn out. And so that's just a little bit of the message I've got today. My daughter has come to sit with me here. She comes often on a lunch break, and we have a beautiful chat. You know, just look at what's going on here, people. The stillness, the essence of God all around. I'm in it. I'm basking in the light. It's available for all of us. We just have to reconfigure the way we think. If ego is still master in your house, then you haven't entered into the kingdom of God as yet. But in time, because you're watching my videos, like I've said before, I'm sure that it's only a matter of time before you have this realization that you're not the ego. And the ego is your emissary. It's that thing that takes care of the body, the operating system of the body, and serves a purpose, but not master, your higher self, your spirit, your God consciousness is master here, people. And so when you get in touch with that, and you can do it via reading things like this. Because even though my spiritual awakening happened some 12, 13 years ago, I'm still being fed this stuff. Because there's still a whole lot more that evidently the universe wants me to know. And so I hope this video has been useful. I hope that you can use it, the information, that you assimilate it, you take it on board as one positive life form speaking to another. We become affiliated, we share. If you are an ego, then this energy isn't any use to you at this moment in time, because you haven't evolved enough to know how to use it. I suppose it's a bit like, I don't know, if I'm, say, like electricity at source and you're a combustion engine, you as a combustion engine have the potential to generate electricity. But I am the electricity. So whatever you're generating, I'm already it. But what I am is a reflection of your potential, you see. And so when you then evolve from the combustion engine, you finally have the confidence to let that go, and you go with the flow of your electrical current. That's then when you enter into God consciousness. So that was probably about an hour, and so continue to read and absorb the rays, the cosmic rays, which are filled with love, with intelligence, with everything that we need, as soon as we have the correct equipment, the correct antennae to be able to receive it. And so now the tree is all around. I'm absorbing that. I'm absorbing the ether and the clouds and everything. And I know from previous experience, written about in one of my chapters, how the trees are also absorbing and utilizing my energy. We know on a fundamental basis they are grateful for the gas that I'm breathing out, but I know over and above that they are grateful for having an affinity with the human being, because the human being forever has had an affinity with trees. There's something deep and knowing about trees, and that's why most of us, we love them. And we are more in tune now about bringing harm to them. And we will rise up if anybody is cutting a tree these days. We don't like it, because we know how important they are as entities, but also as spirit forms. Have a good day, guys and girls.